Hey guys, and welcome back. It's me, Greg from Playtech, and as you might have seen recently, I've been going back to revisit a couple of the SteelSeries products that I took a look at during lockdown. So during one of my reviews, I actually even poured water all over one of them. So today we're going to go back and see how it all held up and if it's still even working. I'm doing this because it's been a while, and I wanted to share some thoughts on these products now that I've had quite a while to get comfortable with them. You know how it is, sometimes things change and you might feel differently about a product, or you might even notice something new, or maybe even something goes wrong. That's why I've decided to come back and revisit these, so that I can give you my impressions a couple months down the track and see how they hold up. So the two keyboards that I'm looking at today are the Apex 3 and the Apex 5 here. The entry and mid-level offerings from the SteelSeries range, really. Let's take a look at the Apex 3 first. The SteelSeries Apex 3 is just all round a super slick keyboard, and in fact, I think this has probably become one of my favorite non-mechanical keyboards of all time. Now you might think that that's a bit of a big call considering how many keyboards I've been through here at Playtech, but the Apex 3 actually sits in a really cool little niche in the market, which in my opinion makes it stand up against keyboards that are actually twice the price, purely because of how unique it is. Now what is this killer feature? Well, it's actually two things. The first is kind of a funny one. The Apex 3 has non-mechanical whisper quiet keys, so you might think that being non-mechanical might be inferior to a mechanical keyboard, but in this case, it actually works perfectly. Why? Because it's perfect for streaming. Because the keys are so quiet, you barely even notice it underneath like your gameplay or Discord or anything like that. You know how you always get people that are on Discord and they're just making heaps of noise, slamming away at the keyboards? You don't get that with this keyboard, and I really like that. I was actually so impressed by how quiet it is that I moved this keyboard into our podcasting studio, and now I use it when we're recording so that people can't hear me typing away and things like that. Now the second thing that makes this keyboard special is the IP32 rating. So if you watched the last video, you might remember that I literally poured a glass of water on it just to test how spill-proof it is. Now afterwards I got heaps of messages about that, people saying, does it still work? How long did you have to dry it off before it turned back on, or anything like that? And the truth is actually that it never stopped working. I basically poured water on it, plugged it back in, it worked fine, and I've been using it more or less ever since. So that was totally impressive to me. I was sort of expecting that maybe after a little while might get some kind of corrosion or something like that, but the actual key mechanism is entirely sealed. So that means that the water isn't even able to get through to the mechanism, so there's no risk of corrosion or anything like that. Now obviously I wouldn't recommend pouring stuff on it, but that's why I'm here, to take one for the team and test these things out for you guys. Of course, on top of those two killer features, you've also got awesome RGB lighting that you can link up to the SteelSeries engine software. You've got dedicated media controls, and of course the slick little magnetic wrist rest. But if you want to see more about that, then just jump over to the last video and check that out, where I go into a little bit more detail. Now let's talk about the Apex 5. The Apex 5 has some fancy hybrid mechanical switches, which is basically halfway between the Apex 3 and the higher end Apex 7, which has full mechanical switches. This means you've still got a super durable and satisfyingly clicky mechanism, but it helps keep the cost down without affecting performance too much. One of my favorite features of the Apex 5, which still sticks out to me, is actually something that goes under the radar for a lot of people, and that's the aluminium chassis. At first look, you might think it was just some kind of coated ABS plastic, but it's actually a really solid metal frame, which just makes it feel super strong and high quality. I have no doubt that this keyboard will be with me for years to come. Another cool upgrade from the Apex 3 is that instead of having zone-based RGB lighting, you actually have per key individual lighting, which means that every single key has its own little LED that can be assigned a different color or behavior. This means that you can get some absolutely insane lighting effects. On top of that, you've got the awesome little OLED display up here, and the magnetic wrist rest, of course, and all the dedicated media controls. Like I said before, if you want more info on those, you can jump back to my previous video, but I'm happy to say that overall, I'm still really impressed with the Apex 5. So at the end of the day, it might seem a bit funny to revisit these keyboards, but I've always found that after the honeymoon period is over, sometimes you can get a little bit sick of some gear, or sometimes you'll find some flaws in it, or something that'll break off, or you know how it is. So I'm happy to report that not only am I still really happy with both of these keyboards, I've actually grown to appreciate them a little bit more. Especially the Apex 3, which is now a permanent fixture in our studio. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back soon with some more videos, so stay tuned.